Hello viewers, this is a ground plan of the south transept of Westminster Abbey. The outlines of the pillars and the walls are reasonably accurate, I believe. The monuments less so. Either way, this map cannot be used to accurately demonstrate or prove anything. It is only an indication. Right. Spencer, Drayton, Jonson, Gray, Phillips, Rowe, Gay and Goldsmith are all connected to the centre of Shakespeare's monument by precise, regular and repeated geometric identities. Drayton, Jonson and Goldsmith are each in specific triangles to the vertical plane. Phillips and Gray are at 30, 60, 90 half equilateral triangles to the horizontal plane, as is Jonson in the vertical. Drayton and Goldsmith are both at 18, 72, 90 degree half golden triangles in the vertical. The muse on Gray holds an invisible spear and is a disguised Minerva. Rowe contains a fascinating web of 3, 4, 5 triangles. Both Gay and Rowe are connected to each other and Shakespeare by concentric Pythagorean triangles. Charlotte Rowe is looking through her father at the very centre of the base of Shakespeare's monument, at the same point that the other 8 memorials and figures are connected to via highly regular and repeated triangles. We knew that Drayton is in line with the centre of the Shakespeare monument and may be staring down at it. We also knew that Jonson appears to be doing likewise. Jonson may be at 30 degrees to the horizontal plane to the centre of the base of Shakespeare's monument, forming a 30, 60, 90 degree half equilateral triangle in the vertical plane. Drayton is lower, and hence the most obvious angle for him to be is at 18 degrees, half a golden triangle in the vertical plane. Moreover, the floor distances between the apparent centre of the Shakespeare monument to Drayton, Jonson and Goldsmith appear to be identical. We can therefore relate the elevation of Goldsmith and Drayton's eyes to that of Jonson. Jonson's elevation should be Drayton's multiplied by roughly 1.776. It appears from examining the photographs I have that this might be the case. If we can measure these elevations and that ratio holds and the derived floor distances match, then we will have verified that they are each pointing to the exact centre of the Shakespeare monument. Phillips' monument has an obvious parting line down the centre of it. The monument has been hacked into the arch it sits into to fit its centre line off that arch. The centre line appears to be at 30 degrees to the Shakespeare to Drayton line. The Shakespeare-Phillips-Drayton triangle is identical to the Shakespeare to the Jonson vertical plane, 30, 60, 90. Hence the floor distance from Phillips to Drayton should be identical to the elevation of Jonson's eyes. This third measurement should complement the previous 3 and demonstrate that Phillips is therefore at a precise 30-degree angle to Shakespeare and Drayton. Gray has the lyric muse on his tomb. She is holding vertically an invisible spear. When you add it, the disc becomes a shield and she becomes Minerva, the spear shaker. I believe that this is the vertical line we need to line up with a floor line from the centre of the Shakespeare monument. It appears to be at 30 degrees from the north-south line of the Abbey. Gray is at the wider 60-degree vertex of a 30, 60, 90 as shown, as are Jonson and Phillips. Drayton and Goldsmith are at the wider vertex of an identical half-golden triangle. Gay's monument, erected in 1732 after the wall but before Shakespeare's monument, has a very prominent milepost-style mark down its centre, similar to the centre parting implied on Phillips' monument. It appears to be at an exact 345 to Shakespeare, its longer foreside in line with the south wall and coincident with this mark. Contrary to the map, the photographs show that Rowe and Gay appear to be flush on the central sections. The line between them is parallel to the south wall. Rowe, placed just after the Shakespeare monument was erected, is festooned with 3, 4, 5 triangles. Despite the photograph being off-centre and obviously bearing perspective, there is an obvious geometry here. There is a gap in the pages of the book the woman has open. It is at a perfect 3, 4, 5 angle and coincident with the left side of the monument. A mirror of this line runs through the 3-4-5 shaped plinth she is leaning on. This figure may relate to Dürer's figure that is thought to be a self-portrait. There are two mirrored 3-4-5s, the purple ones. The upper one runs up from the toes of the woman along another crease in the woman's clothes similar to the one in the book, visible when viewed on that side of the monument, and to Rowe's eyes. The vertical from Rowe's eyes dissects the 3-4-5 of the plinth. This vertical appears to be at a 5-12-13 triangle, coincident with the Gay 3-4-5 triangle and the Shakespeare Monument Centre. Both Rowe and his daughter Charlotte above are in concentric 3-4-5 triangles in the vertical plane to the centre of the Shakespeare monument, Charlotte looking through her father. Neither are facing directly at the monument, but they appear to fit. Rowe, his daughter, and Gay are all at the corners of Pythagorean triangles that have their other irregular vertex on the centre of Shakespeare. Both Rowe and Gay were removed many years ago to reveal the important medieval paintings behind them that had survived the Reformation. The monuments were taken to the Triforium and are now on display in the new gallery. Spenser is the last of the monuments in the model, notwithstanding Chaucer, and the first to be erected around about 1600 and was subsequently altered in the 18th century. It appears to be at 40 degrees to Shakespeare. This 40-degree line might pass through the corners of the Prior Memorial. 40 isn't a very regular angle. Creating it with technical drawing methods is very cumbersome. This is the least regular triangle. All the others are either half equilateral or golden, or low-order Pythagorean. The tablet holds an equilateral triangle. The tapered section at the bottom, which is neatly below the centre line, and the text in parentheses are obvious subsections to be examined. There are 17 L's and 39 E's. The I of Odir, marshalled above the I of with its enlarged W, might be the missing E. There are a number of suspicious double letters, an acrostic to, and the word second being emphasised. Chaucer happens to be at a 45-degree line from the centre of Shakespeare, but we have nothing precise to measure to. This monument, Chaucer's bus stop as I call it, was placed there, possibly taken from another church in the mid-16th century, still decades before the rest of the monuments were erected. There does not exist any 30-60 net between Shakespeare, Spenser and Chaucer that has its right angle precisely on Shakespeare. The central point would need to be under the wall to make that happen. I had previously drawn both Spenser and Chaucer at a 45-degree angle to the Shakespeare-Drayton line. We have to put the point they are all connected to under the wall to make that happen. I am happy to inform you that the point they are all connected to is not under the wall. There are so far 10 triangles connected to one common point in the dead centre of Shakespeare's monument. They are all highly regular, with the exception of Spenser's 40-50-90 triangle that is nevertheless coincident on two sides with the grey 30-60-90. We have 5 triangles in 4 different vertical planes, and 5 consisting of 2 concentric pairs. Drayton, Jonson and Goldsmith are equally distant from the centre of Shakespeare's monument. The 30-60-90 on Gray and Phillips are perpendicular to each other. Goldsmith and Drayton are on identical half-golden triangles. The half equilateral that Jonson is at in the vertical is identical to that on Phillips in the horizontal. Rowe and Gay are on concentric Pythagorean triangles to each other. Rowe is a nest of 3-4-5s. There will be many others in it examined further. There is a 5-12-13 in the horizontal plane connecting Rowe and Charlotte. The other 2 sides of that plinth will be Pythagorean. All of this is coincident at one point. Most of these monuments were put there before the Shakespeare monument was even erected. Why did they do this? The alignment and inscription on any monument placed in the area of Shakespeare's monument before 1800 should be very closely examined for connections to 1740 and any early Masonic terminology. We need eyes to investigate these monuments and the vast numerical puzzle that is woven into the sonnet's verse. Please help by sharing this video or at least interacting with it to increase its search footprint. We have moved. From the Jacobean world of the work's conception and the geometry of the sonnet's title page and artwork to front the astonishing cryptograms within the verse itself, we are now in the creation of the nation builders of the 18th century. Westminster, this region of the Abbey, is simply the most sacred spot in England. We can now see that it houses a connecting monument spanning the entire area of the south transept around Shakespeare's monument, constructed over 2 centuries, dedicated to a man whose name we do not even commonly know, and who we stubbornly refuse to discover. This sprawling monument is blatantly Masonic in conception. It is perhaps the core of their greatest secret. This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars, this other Eden demi-paradise, this fortress built by nature for herself against infection and the hand of war, this happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone set in the silver sea, which serves it in the office of a wall or as a moat defensive to a house against the envy of less happier lands. This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England is how we would now define ourselves. We are Shakespeare. Stand back. You are about to be civilized.